I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, under God, under God, under God, under God. Come out of it. So is it. It doesn't have to be one person's God. It doesn't have to be another person's God. It doesn't have to be the God of the Presbyterians or the Baptists or the Jews or the Muslims or the Hindus. It doesn't have to be anybody's God. But it is not part of the government. So I saw some things in the background as I was perusing YouTube this week, and they kept saying, well, look at this statute that's in Arkansas. And I thought, you know, what could it possibly be, right? What could it possibly be? So what did I find out? I found out, in case you haven't seen this, this is the unveiling. You know who this is? This is the devil himself. This is Baphomet. This is Baphomet with cloven hooves, a goat's head. It is goat's horns. And it has two admiring children looking up at it, because they are looking at Baphomet as what? As their leader? As somebody who is going to look after them? As who they want to grow up to be like? Give me a break, right? So I thought about this as I went to pick my grandson up at the swimming pool, and I started to juxtapose it. I mean, first of all, the reason that I recited part of the Pledge of Allegiance is that we keep separate God and country. We embrace them both, but we keep them separate because each of us is entitled, as a freedom of religion, to worship our own envisionment of who God is. And most people consider us to be a Judeo-Christian or a Christian country, but we obviously are much greater than that, in the sense that we embrace other people's, we allow for other people's to embrace their own religions. So why am I having a problem? This is Baphomet, right? Well, it is devil worship, and it represents devil worship. And what it has to do with Arkansas or the Arkansas Capitol, I have no idea. You know, if you were putting this in the Guggenheim and they wanted to have a display of occult or alternate deities, I would say, hey, go for it. No problem. You want to put it on some private monument, you want to put it on the side of the road. You've got the Grove, right, with the giant owl that supposedly all of our leaders are going to and having their little parties, their little seances. I say go for it. As long as you leave us alone and as long as you don't put it in our faces and you don't make it a part of officialdom of any formal, constitutionally protected governmental entity. So how does this juxtapose with what's been going on? Let me give you the first example. There's a guy named Roy Moore that ran for the Alabama Senate. What was that, a couple years ago? It was a special run. They ended up dredging out a bunch of stuff about him, and whether it's true or not, I don't know, basically intimating that he was attracted to very young women. He was 28 or 30 years old, and he was asking people's young women's parents if he could date them, and they were 16, 17, 18 years old. You know, I think it was borderline creepy, but it's nothing like we've seen and watched and witnessed in the last year and a half since then. So it's another occasion of projection, right? It is, well, we're going to find some kind of heinous activity that we're going to claim you engage in when we're doing something 20 times, 50 times, in an immeasurable, infinite number of times worse. So why am I bringing up Judge Roy Moore? Well, I'm bringing him up because he is a complex figure. And while he was a circuit court judge in Alabama, before he got onto the Supreme Court of Alabama, he, in a matter of a day or so, installed a 5,000 block of granite with the 10 Commandments into his courtroom space. And immediately, of course, there was a reaction. Well, of course we would have a reaction to the 10 Commandments, right? Not everybody believes that. What would happen if I came into court and I didn't believe those 10 Commandments and I thought I would be unfairly judged because of them, right? So there was a lawsuit filed in federal court. They claimed that they theoretically might not receive fair treatment if they went to Moore's court and his religious opinions were put upon them. So they went to the federal court. They went, I think, even to the Court of Appeals. This was in 2001, 2002. There finally was a Court of Appeals order from the federal courts telling him, a state court judge, to get that 10 Commandments out of the courtroom. And when he refused to, ultimately the courts in Alabama ordered them removed, and then he was removed for office for judicial misconduct for failing to comply with the order of the federal court. Then the Alabamans reelected him, I think, onto the Supreme Court, and maybe even he was Chief Justice. And then, of course, when they finally tried to elevate him to the United States Senate, all of this other stuff came out, that he was creepy, right? That he might have touched a younger woman. We're not talking about peeling their face off. We're not talking about little girls that are in a swimming pool with bloody feet. We're not talking about any of that. We're talking about he might have unduly touched them or done some kind of creepy thing about trying to date women that are 10 or 12 years younger than he is and that are maybe still not even out of high school. And frankly, I wasn't really comfortable with that. But alongside of this is crazy stuff. So what is more than that, and let's talk about this because I find this fascinating. So over the last couple of years, we have removed monuments of real heroes, mostly Confederate heroes, but real heroes from 100 or 150 years ago. And there is pages of these statues which have been taken down from public places because they offended people that these representatives of Confederate culture violated our ethical standards today. They represented our past, which included slavery, and whether or not they highly espoused it or just simply espoused separating themselves from the Union because they felt they were being picked on, or both, starting with Robert E. Lee, probably the most famous and most successful and most creative and most inventive general of the Confederate War, of the Civil War. So here's what we've done here. In Annapolis, Maryland, we removed former Supreme Court Justice Roger Taney because he authored the Supreme Court's Dred Scott decision, and that we can't have that. We removed 4 people's ties with the Confederacy in Austin, Texas. Robert E. Lee, Albert Sidney, etc., and some others. And a former governor, James Stephen Hogg, from the pedestals of the University of Texas. We removed person from statues of Robert E. Lee and Thomas J. Stonewall Jackson were removed from Baltimore, Maryland. We removed honoring Lee from Brooklyn, New York. From Dallas, Texas, Robert E. Lee was removed from Robert E. Lee Park, which was also named in the honor of the general, and I think it was dedicated to Lee by Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1936. We removed 3 Confederate monuments in Daytona Beach, Florida, and in Durham, North Carolina. And you think, well, this is just the Southerners, right? We're going to pick on the Southerners. No, we're not. We're not. As a matter of fact, let me tell you, as I am from Montana, the state's capital city on August 18th, 2017, removed a memorial to Confederate soldiers that had been in a public park since 1916. Okay? We had Confederate war heroes that migrated to Montana, and we decided to honor them shortly before the First World War came about. And I'm sure, there were many people there that felt proud to have had that up. So, Los Angeles, California, Louisville, Kentucky, Madison, Wisconsin, Memphis, Tennessee, Nashville, New Orleans, New York City. Busts of Robert E. Lee and Jackson were removed overnight on August 17th. I think that's in 17, that's a year ago. Richmond, Virginia, Rockville, Maryland, San Diego, California, honoring Jefferson Davis was quietly removed in August. And San Antonio, Texas, Jefferson Davis Highway marker was removed in 2016 from San Antonio, Texas, and on and on and on. And so our complex, interesting history, a reminder of from whence we came and where we have come, and how we have adapted to the constitutional impact of our government. Not only that, but that we have come back as a nation from the Civil War. At times I'm not sure we should have. I'm not sure that those states should not have been allowed to secede, and that we should not have spilled, 600,000 men's blood all over the central part of the eastern states to prove that some of those states should have been forced to stay. But here's the point. The point is we have statutes and monuments and dedications to the Ten Commandments, and those were all taken out. Those are offensive. Those are unacceptable. Some of them represent the old world slavery. Some of them represent the Judeo-Christian ethics, and those all had to go out. They were all ordered out. But now we have, how do you like this? We have Baphomet. We have the Dark One. We have the evil one with wings on his back and a goat head, and oftentimes depicted as a bisexual, that is, with breasts and male organs. It is dark and evilness, and we put that on as a monument, a giant bronze monument onto the capital of one of the states of this union. And so I'm asking you in Arkansas, what are you going to do about it? Because it's not okay. And how does it juxtapose with everything else that we've talked about? It's absolute craziness. So I'm not going to go on and on about this because I think I've made my point. But we as a people need to not allow this creepiness. I mean, this is just plain, this is way out beyond creepiness. And to put this in context with Hollywood and pedophilia and sex trafficking and the rest of the stuff that is going on, to drop this in Arkansas in the middle of this is insanity. I don't even know how to say it. It's insanity. I don't know who paid for it. I saw a picture of who the sculptor was. It doesn't matter. I mean, somebody allowed that to be you know, concrete base and the rest of that to be poured onto the Capitol and to be placed there, no matter who paid for it. It's crazy stuff. So the question is then, you know, what have we come to? What have we come to as a nation that is even consideration? All right, so page 2. I have had dozens of people send me emails. I'll put my email up address now. I'm going to say to you, number one, if you send me an email that says I'm in, I want to participate, share my email and name with others in my state, I'm going to take that as a consent and acceptance to do so. I don't think I'll pass the phone numbers around. I just, you know, I'm hesitant to do that. You can do that yourselves, among yourselves, in the states in which you're involved. I had somebody from Eastern Washington say to me, you know, I really, if I need my boogie bag, I'm probably heading to Idaho, so maybe link me that direction. I think you get more help in northern Idaho than you will in western Washington. I've lived there, I know. So that's another part of it. We're going to begin to form this stuff. Somebody wanted to know, well, what are you guys going to do? And I think I'm not the great leader of this. I am just a very proactive, engaged citizen, okay? And I think the rest of you can, state by state, organization by organization, promote and push this. I think what we do for sure is we look at what we can do about this election, what we can do to encourage and engage people to vote, who it is as candidates we want to support, and perhaps somebody from each of these organizations will both look at congressional candidates as well as Senate candidates and gubernatorial candidates for that matter, statewide races. We can also look at what we object to and where we activate, and it may be that in one state there is some kind of crazy thing going on or an initiative and you guys agree that this needs to stop. We can ask for the inclusion of other people. What was it, the Gray Panthers or something like that was a group, I don't know anything about them. The Tea Party folks in the past, even the Bernie volunteers, you know, some of the people that worked with me on that petition to end the Federal Reserve were Bernie supporters that believe just as we do in getting rid of the Federal Reserve, and that is part of it. And then setting an agenda for what has to change, and that is downsizing government, getting rid of excess employees, making people accountable, holding them for sedition and treason and the rest of that, having one set of government that applies to all of us, the little people and the big people, winding down on the international interference in war and participating and engaging in helping terrorist groups, funding and financing like Fast and Furious and the ISIS folks that are still getting money, and some of the other groups in the Middle East right now, trying to help close our borders, having an active and engaged immigration policy that is fair and provides for workers when we need them, but that they don't get a permanent right to stay and they don't come here illegally, having identity for voting, and then going from there, but also to start linking us state by state with maybe the ham operators, with the police and fire departments, with the boogie bunches to try to get out, with getting people lined out for their groups that will help support in times of shortage and the rest of that. Finding some volunteer groups perhaps that look at food and storage and backup and safety places. And then another layer of this is to get lined out to have a no-go zone where we don't allow that. There's no breakdown of the banking system. We're not going to allow another 2008 fake banking system collapse, and we're certainly not going to allow the Fed to fund them We're not going to allow there to be National Guard or the rest of that coming into any state to enforce it. We're not going to tolerate the breakdown of natural gas distribution, electrical grid distribution, the grocery stores, the gas stations, and the rest of that. We can resist the 5G thing. We can start to get after the chemtrails. I would love to find somebody that pours fuel into one of those jets that creates the chemtrails. Just one. That's all it takes. Or to follow them, or to track them, or to see who it was, or to have at altitude samples taken so that we can find out what's in those chemtrails and report back. I mean, there's so many things we can do, and I can't do any of them, but we can together do them, and we can start drawing people in from all different parts of here that say, I won't tolerate this. I have thought about the name thing. I looked up the ROC. The ROC ends up with, what did I end up with? 96 of that acronym. There are 96 different organizations that already have the ROC. I looked at several others. One of the things that I liked was Americans reclaiming our country, American reclaiming our Constitution, and that's AROC, which is down, I think, to about 4 responses and nothing very close. The TBOC, Taking Back Our Country, is also fairly good, and it would have to be TBOC, and that TBOC is okay with me. I mean, I'm looking for you guys to give input. This is not my project. This is our project, okay? And I think we're going to have to get the website. We're going to have to put some money together, but I'm not going to take it, okay? Because when I do, then there are people that are going to come in and say, well, you obviously were looking for a job. You're looking to line your pockets, and I don't want to do that. The reason I haven't asked for any money from you folks is A, I don't need it, and B, I don't want to have anything I say colored by it. I don't. So I'm looking for the first state group that gets together, and in numbers they can vet their own people, and we'll find somebody in one of those larger groups that is highly responsible and that can take care of that financial part of it and keep it an open book accounting kind of situation, so that the couple $1,000 we need or the $10,000 we need to get the website working and fully engaged, so that we have bulletin boards and state organizations and people that can sign in and they can look at their own stuff and they have their own internal exchanges and the rest of that. We can do all of that. So yes, it's a very aggressive agenda, and we don't have to do it all. But I think as citizens, the more we do, and the more we draw people in, and the more we engage people, and the more we encourage people to participate with us, the more we can change this country. And we will. I said from the outset, that literally the first day that I put anything up on my stuff, it is unite the 10 million, and it's just stayed with me forever. We need to have 10 million people in this country that will not let it stay the way it is. And I think for all of those reasons, we can do that. Now, one final thing. We don't have to agree on everything, okay? If we take the Fed Reserve down, do we have to agree that the Department of Treasury is going to run a gold or silver based currency, or that we're going to do crypto, or we're going to take the currencies all out? Let's not worry about that. We as a collective, once we have reunited, once we have gotten this thing back to normal, can make those kinds of decisions. But if we do nothing, none of those decisions will be available for us. That's the truth. So I don't care if you agree with me on lots of things. It doesn't matter to me. That we have a common base. And as Q points out, and I don't want to spend much time on that, but united we cannot be defeated, and we cannot allow ourselves to be split up into little factions because people find themselves disagreeing about 2 or 3 issues. It is a matter of taking this corruption and this devious presence out of our government at the federal and state and local levels, and to round up these traffickers and the corruption and the megalithic corporations that are systematically violating our rights, and restoring our rights to us. So that's my little dog and pony show. That's my little soapbox. You know, I take myself seriously, but I also realize how crazy it is to be sitting in a rural part of Arizona trying to drum up support for getting a nationwide movement going and worldwide. You know, I've got folks from Canada and New Zealand and Ireland and India and Philippines and other places that have already contacted me. It's a worldwide thing, folks. Let's get her done. This is gonna outgrow me really quickly, so I need folks to come to the fore and get after it. And thank you so much, because we are going to do this. All right, and let's get rid of Baphomet in the process. Thank you so much.